this is Heavy Thrasher, and that's Metal Productions channel at YouTube. And again, it's another nightly video. Just haven't been as much in the mood to do videos recently. Just been exhausted of doing some, and also busy with other shit. But this day, I'm gonna do another this is a top 10 list of some of my least favorite albums by at least some of my favorite bands. So, however, these are ones I'm not saying that are pieces of shit. There are definitely some that will probably come up as pretty fucking bad, but these are ones that I can still listen to from time to time, but will just at least kind of not get into. Some are good, some are, again, these least favorite sometimes pretty much means that just not nearly as strong, but are still playable, still listenable, but just are not as good as some of their other albums. So, yeah, again, that's pretty much what I mean, but so we can definitely get into at least number 10, which is... Yeah. Motorhead, The World Is Yours. Not a bad album. That's why it's really low on here. Again, I don't think Motorhead has ever put out they've never put out a bad album. I've never heard a bad Motorhead album. There's just this one, not nearly as good. Now, I haven't heard a whole lot of their other 90s albums. I only have, I think the last later album I heard was at least Inferno, which was before, I think, Kiss of Death. But this one isn't bad. Still not a bad album. I like it. I like this one. I think the one after this, Aftershock, is actually better. I know they're releasing another album this year called Bad Magic. Haven't heard the song, which was, I think was called Thunder and Lightning. Haven't heard that track yet, but to me, I know what I'm going to expect. Another classic sounding, or just another good Motorhead album, but this one is just not nearly as good as Aftershock. Or maybe even the one before it, Motorizer, but still, not a bad album, but that's why it's very low on the list. Next one. I have this on CD, but I'm missing the front cover. I got the back cover, but missing the front cover, but at least I got my dad's vinyl. This is Black Sabbath. Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. Not a bad album. Still, that's why it's kind of lower on the list. I think it's, again, to me, I thought Volume 4 was at least a little better. This one, I think them experimenting at least with a lot of like the no proggier stuff. Well, it wasn't bad. I think where they really got it right, some of the more proggier stuff, was with Sabotage, even though that was a heavy album, and I've said before that that's my favorite Sabbath album. But, and then Techno Ecstasy, which was still more proggier, I think actually where they actually got the prog rock style correct. This one, while it still has that sort of, sound very similar to, like, Volume 4, there is definitely some bizarre, and I don't think it worked as good. It's not a good, it doesn't mean that I hate this album. I do like it. It's a good Black Sabbath album, but not nearly as good as some of their other ones. Just my personal opinion. But, yeah. Another one. Blurs to Cult, Mirrors. Okay, maybe not as good as, again, this one's, we're starting to get a little higher into the list. We're starting now getting to ones that are not nearly as good, and this is pretty much Blue Oyster Cult, really messing with poppier sounds. Even though there is still some good Blue Oyster Cult songs on here, it's not nearly as strong. I think the album after this, Cultosaurus Erectus, really rectified their sort of sound. That album is really fucking good. And then you've got the album after that one as well, Fire Unknown Origin, which they still kept Martin Birch. Again, those two albums are pretty damn good. This one, I don't know, it seems like they literally were losing a bit of steam. They kind of almost sound a little tired. So, even though they've always worked with poppier stuff to begin with, this just does not work. Still a good album. I can listen to this one, but it's just not nearly as a favorite Blue Oyster Cult album. But still good. I think I've said this before, maybe. This is probably one of my favorite bands and the ones that got me into heavy music to begin with. ACDC, Black Ice. You know, they've everyone has always has their least favorite. Some will even say that Fly on the Walls, one of their shittier albums, I guess. Some to put it the way that it is. Some will even say that Blow Up Your Video is a pretty crappy album. Some may even say that, though I don't hear it a lot, but some will also maybe say Ball Breaker, even though that was the first AC/DC album I ever heard. It was also released on my birth year, 1995, and and then some will maybe even say Stiff Upper Lip. Maybe even some will say freaking Flick of the Switch, but I think it's a killer album. One of my favorites with Brian Johnson on vocals, but I don't know. Even though I don't have Stiff Upper Lip in my collection, I don't know. This one, no. 15 songs. Okay, that's definitely stretching it, guys. That's definitely stretching it, but I don't think some of the writing on here was really good. I think I'm not gonna say that it's because of the producer Brendan O'Brien. I don't think he's the reason for why it sounds the way. I don't think it's his problem. Even though he wanted to kind of bring back the sort of Highway to Hell, Back in Black style of writing, but no, I don't think. I think the band just sounds tired on this one. Some will say, well, they're old. Well, I think Rock or Bust, which was the one after this, was actually better. And I think, that album was at least 34 minutes long. And that was actually to me, they actually sound more on fire than that on that album than they do here. And despite the problems that I was going with in the background or recording of that album, the shit with, what's his name? Yeah, I know. I'm forgetting that guy's name, who's I think now in jail. Despite that album actually came out good. This one, no, I don't think this one actually came out as good. It's got some good songs, but no, this is not really for me a go-to AC/DC album. No. Yeah, the title track's good, which is actually the last song on the album. It's actually a way to end it, but I think that a way to end it, but some of the other songs, it just sounds way too fucking primitive. And I know, given the fact that it's AC/DC, some will say, well, they've always had a bit of a primitive sound to begin with. But this one just sounds way too primitive. I don't know what the hell happened with this. Some of these songs just sound way too tiresome. And yes, Brian Johnson sounds at least pretty good on this one. He does sound, more into the music that he's playing ever since fucking Flick of the Switch, which on that album was the last time he actually sounded very energized, more alive. On this one, he just sounds like, what the fuck? That, or even Razor's Edge, which also has him sounding, even though kind of raspy, he also sounds very much he's into the music. Maybe even albums such as Ball Breaker on here, he sounded alive, like he's into the music, but I don't know if everyone else is really into it. They're just, to me, this is like a a pretty lackluster of an ACDC album. But still not bad, not horrible, just not one I really will go back to. Alright, moving along to number 6. I think at this point it's now become almost a dead horse that's been beaten almost half to death. Judas Priest, Redeemer of Souls. Yes, yes, yes. Man, at first I was like, okay, even though I heard the single for which wasn't bad, but the more listen it gave to us, the more I'm like, what happened? What? I don't know what happened. To me, it sounds like it's everything's well, played. The guitars, riffs, and everything, they're good. But what's the reason for why it's my least favorite? I've tried to kind of come to conclusions on why I don't like this album as much as I should. I will tell you right now, it's because of the fucking mixing and the production. Everything, it's like, it sounds like it's recorded, let's just say you have your amplifier right there. You put shit on top of it, whatever, any kind or whatever kind, on top of the amplifier. Put mud, have it also going where it's raining. You put a muffled freaking microphone next to it and you just let the guitars rip. Let it record, and to me that's what it sounds like. The guitar sound sucks. The guitar sound really sucks on this album. It sounds like it has no power behind it. Some will even say that the band sounds tired on this one. Maybe a little. But if there's any indication on that, it's probably on the song Hell and Back. The intro for that song really ruins because the riff, when it hits to the actual song, it's great. To me, it's one of the best songs off that album. But when it comes to the intro and the very forced vocal intro, because of Halford just comes in very early, maybe just too early. If maybe he came in just a little late, if they left the intro at least a bit longer, it would build up to what the song is. It's a great track. And also the ending when they just start ripping again, and Halford starts singing to the chorus to Hell and Back and everything, and it's one of the best songs on here, but it's just it's killed by a very forced intro. And that's one of the things about the sound that feels forced, along with the rushed production. I think the production sounds rushed. This is some pretty, in recent dates, one of the worst sounding Judas Priest albums I've ever heard. And given they've never had some good sounding production albums anyway. Some will say Rock-A-Rolla was a pretty, had some bad production, but for some reason that actually came out good. It didn't sound too forced, but around here, this is just it's a weak Judas Priest album, and to me I would say maybe the weakest since Demolition. To me, I thought Demolition was a pretty weak album, and that was the last to feature Tim Ripper Owens on vocals, and I think that album was weak, and coming off his debut with the band Jugulator, which some will say that's not as good, but I've come to really like that album. I think even though I think that album suffers also from pretty bad production as well, but again, I think this one, even though I think that the production sounds better than Redeemer of Souls, I think that one was a little too thin. This sounds a little too muddy. Way too muddy. Not thin. This sounds muddy as hell. But it's a good album. Not bad. I can listen to it. But I just can't get by but just thinking that what happened with the production. To me, and also should be said that there was 3 producers One of them was Glenn Tipton. He'll produce the album, and I think having 3 producers, I think, clustered the fuck out of it. It really sounded like a mess, and while they really put at least some good songs together, and I think the live versions might sound way better. These are songs that will actually really sound good live, but on here, this was, I'll say, fail. I don't know, I'm going on too long, which I have more on the list, but I don't know, this was definitely quite a disappointment. What's next? Oh. I don't have a whole lot of Anvil albums, which I have heard pretty much. Not a whole lot of Anvil albums, but I have heard at least a bit. You know, I've heard Hard and Heavy, Metal on Metal, Forged in Fire, Strength of Steel, Pound for Pound, Worth the Wait, Plugged and Permanent. Then you have, what was the other one? Shit, there was another one after that as well. God damn, I know there was also Speed of Sound, and I'm missing one. There was one as well that I've heard, but after that, when you go on to albums such as, oh, there was another one. It's got like a tractor or something on the cover, which is like a shape of an anvil. There's that. They're still going strong, but then when you go into the, This Is 13, another great album. I have that one, but I think that one's pretty good. And you got Juggernaut of Justice, which is also another good album. Then you've got this. Hope in Hell. I like Anvil. I like some of their albums, even some of their 90s ones. I like some of their later ones, but while they're not as good as some of their, you know, some of their classic albums such as Metal on Metal and Forged in Fire, there's still some good albums after that, but this is probably weak. Wow. I think the band sounds tired. I think even more tired than Judas Priest. What the fuck happened with this one? And I think as to really show the tiresome the band, they got a song in there called Shut the Fuck Up, which even though I'd rather use, even though they've always had some very tongue-in-cheek songs such as Bullshit, which was off of Speed of Sound. This, even though it's tongue-in-cheek songs, they've always had some Maniac again, but this, no, I really don't know. Even the 2 bonus tracks in there, I don't know as ever did. To me, I can't even remember a whole lot of it. It's got some good songs on here that I like. Badass Rock and Roll is pretty good. Hope in Hell, Eat Your Words is, I think, the Fight is number 1. You know, there's some good songs on here, but this is no. Even though they're not bad, it's just no. Not a good album, really. I think this is one of the, I wouldn't say worst, but one of the weakest Anvil albums I've ever heard in recent year. This is, I think, at least of all the weak ones that I have, this is probably the one of the Anvil albums that I have that's weak, and I don't have a whole lot, but this one is pretty weak. Alright. What's next? Oh yeah. I like him. He's got some other great albums as well. This one I don't think is not nearly as one of his better ones. And some will say definitely it's not one of his better ones, but hey, I like the album after this one. Alice Cooper, Special Forces. Not a bad album, it's good. It's got some good ones. I think Zipper Catches Skin was actually, I think, kind of actually made the style on this one actually better. They attacked it on that one better than they attacked it on here. This type of sound, it's not bad, it's good. It's a good album, but it's got some weak ones. To me, I probably should have put this a little below Hope in Hell, but I don't know. There is some probably some really bizarre moments on here. This is Alice Cooper's drunk years. Actually, no. I take that back. My brother was telling me that no way he was drunk when recording these, because he probably would have not been able to record this album if he was drunk. I think he was really high on cocaine, drugs, and pretty much all that jazz. this is pretty much bizarre stuff, and I haven't heard a whole lot of Flush the Fashion, but Zipper Catch a Skin I think some of his more coke infested albums. This one I think was at least pretty weak, and I think I can tell it's because of him being too high on what he was smoking before while recording this. Really, this is just there's some I think what would really give off I think for that is you've got songs such as Prettiest Cop on the Block, which I think the title let alone says something. That, or even the song Skeletons in the Closet, which is very much a new wavy sound, but you can tell he probably was doing a lot of drugs and everything for that. It just sounds like he was doing a lot. It's, even though it's kind of, back to his more creepier stuff, again, he's always known for some of that stuff on here. I think even him being on coke was still shock enough because of he really I think kept at least even within that. While it's not bad, I don't think right here it worked. Zipper Catch a Skin was actually pretty good, and I haven't heard a whole lot of Dada, but I think after that when he started to become sober, I like Constructor. Some would say that one's pretty crappy, but I actually am very fond of that. To me, I think one of his best 80s Alice Cooper albums, the ones he ever did, was Razor Fist and Yell. That album's definitely one of his most metal sounding albums ever. But here, this is one of his more weaker 80s pop rock albums. Still good, but not nearly as strong. Oh, now we're getting to some really weak shit right now. These are really my least favorite ones, and I haven't given a whole lot. I think it's Volcano, Holy Wicked. I've said that this was one of my least favorites, and I think, well, I did say it was probably a little better than the last one, which was... Oh, I think I forgot the name of that one, but that one wasn't nearly... Man, the Key to the Beast. Not a good album as well, and this one either. I don't know. The sound is much darker on here. To me, I don't think the band is sounding nearly as strong as they were before. When they had what's his name on fucking Angel, I think they actually were still much tighter sound when they had Angel, and I have one of their comeback album, which was Tales from the Black Book. Great album. Was not disappointed when I purchased that one. I purchased it pretty much after it was like 2010 or 11. I purchased that album. I loved that album. That was a great album. Great fucking album. No. This is not as good of an album. Even though maybe it was better than The Man That Keyed the Beast, this is still pretty weak. I don't think the band has it anymore. I don't think they do. I think they've lost it. Out of all the Brazilian thrash bands, this band I think has lost it. I don't know if the same can be said for Chackle, because I actually kind of... I have to probably give that one a re-listen, but their last one was pretty good. But this one, no. Even maybe I can listen to this album and maybe some of the later Sepultura albums, but this... Oh god, no. Maybe more so than some of the Sarcophago albums after, like Hate, maybe, but or The Worst. What a fucking title that was. Why the hell were they thinking when they made, when Sarcophago picked for one of their albums to be called The Worst? That's fucking pretty fucking funny if you ask me, but this right here... I don't know if the sound would have been called The Worst to actually probably be given more respect, but this still isn't a good album. Holy Wicked. I think a holy what the fuck. Alright. We're getting there. We're getting to the last one. This is at least number 2. I've said I did not care for this album. Yeah, it's like while they did put some weak sounding albums in the 80s, I still like some of those. I still can listen to those from start to finish, even if there's some little not so strong points about those. You know, even those have their cons, but Saxon Destiny. No. No. I don't think this is as good of an album as this was. It's got, to me, I thought Rock the Nations at least had some strong stuff, even though if it was held back by pretty weak production, but this, well, having at least some good production, a little better than maybe the one before, but I don't think this is, the writing was good. You have the song For Whom the Bell Tolls is a great song. It's definitely a pretty rocker of a song. It's got that classic Saxon sound, but the rest of them just falls flat on its ass. Everything just falls flat. Hell, I actually can remember, even though it was probably played to death, I think, by VH1 Classics, Metal Mania, their cover of the Christopher Cross song, Ride Like the Wind, but other than that, this sound just falls. It's like it's got an idea. They want to play it. They want to attack that AOR sound. But here, I think, while Raven, I think, has had some, during the, maybe the Pack is Back, even though I don't own that album. I haven't heard that one from start to finish, but I have heard some of it and was not nearly as sold. I was probably humored by it. But this, I think this one was like, they really almost, it's like when they hit the song, it's like, okay, we're picking up again. It's like, yeah, we're getting back up, and then we're back down. And I think that they almost broke the fucking floor when they hit when they did this. It's, I don't know, not a very good Saxon album. And we're probably going to one that I think is pretty much, I don't know if cocaine was even involved with this, but I think this was like, the fame, I think, got to his head pretty quick. And when I say him, I'm not meaning by a solo artist. I think the guitar player. ZZ Top, Afterburner. This is a pretty weak ZZ Top album. If anyone said that they wanted to recreate Eliminator, I think Eliminator had much better attack, even though I don't think that's not nearly, I think it's overrated, that album. But this one, I don't know if I want to say this is underrated, because sometimes I mean underrated in a good way. I mean like it's actually in a good way sometimes, but this one, or mean like underrated and like why is this underrated? Sometimes like that, but here, I think it's why I know a lot of people didn't care for this album, and this album is why it's on number 1. This is pretty bad, and it's not one of my favorite albums at all, because no, this is definitely a pretty weak album. I don't know if I can say that this is a ZZ Top album. Yeah, it's got some ZZ Top trademarks here and there, but this is like Billy Gibbons playing in Loverboy. Sink that for a minute. At least Eliminator had some, it had that classic ZZ Top sound. Not nearly as, heavy, that sort of raw heaviness that they had. Not to say that ZZ Top were a metal band, but they had a bit of a heavy sort of edge on some of those classic 70s albums. But while it wasn't as much present Eliminator, they did actually had a pretty good way of what they were doing with that. They knew to, even though this, despite that it was practically a Billy Gibbons solo album, this right here feels like Billy Gibbons went to a different band. It's like it's got his vocals, even it's got Dusty Hill's vocals doing on Can't Stop Rockin', which was actually, which is used in the intro for the third Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. I think it was called Turtles in Time or something like that. Maybe based off of one of the video games, but even though that movie was pretty shitty as well, but this does not sound like ZZ Top at times. This is like really slick 80s AOR pop. This is pretty much what happens when the fame and even when MTV really gets to your head. Everything just got to their head with this one. I don't think they were trying to recreate. I think they just wanted to almost outdo Eliminator, and they probably made one of the weakest ZZ Top albums I've ever heard. And I was kind of glad that even though that was my first ZZ Top album I ever heard was Recycler, that one was like a return to form. If you ask me, that one actually sounds like they really were continuing the Eliminator sound. But that one worked. That one worked. This right here sucks. This just sucks. I would say this is a fucking piece of shit, but it still got at least a little bit, but I heard this and I had to sit through it and I was like, oh god, this is pretty, and I think I do remember some songs such as Sleeping Bag, such as Rough Boy, and Can't Stop Rockin', I do remember, but even though that's actually, I'll say that's one of the best songs off this album, but this one just, no. This album is like one of the weakest ZZ Top albums ever in their discography. This is like, and I'm just repeating myself, but again, not a good album. Okay, that's pretty much my least favorite albums by some of my favorite bands. I don't have a whole lot of my favorite bands in here. Like me, I wasn't going to pick a lot of underrated ones because of actually most of those underrated bands have never really disappointed me. Blood Feast, someone say Jumping Block Blues was one of their weakest albums, but I actually am very fond of that one. I like some of that album. There's some that I like, but me, I wasn't just going pick every other album out of there. Like me, I almost thought about picking up Ozzy Osbourne's Bark at the Moon, but I have like the remix version of that album, which is not really a remix re-recording. That album isn't bad, but I like that one actually. I kind of do tend to like that one, but I wasn't gonna go and pick out a fucking Kiss album. I wasn't gonna go on there and pick out some freaking Rush album. I wasn't gonna pick out some Megadeth album. I think we'll really go on there. Maybe it might be Super Collider, but I'm not gonna do that because that will just make this video kind of more typical. I wanted to make this video at least not as typical, and that's what I did. I tried not to be too typical. This one to pick ones that are at least some of my favorite bands. That doesn't have to mean I'm gonna go out and pick some underrated album. I can go into my vinyl collection already and pick out probably a pretty weak underrated album. But some of those, but I'm not going to do that because of, again, that would just be because of even some of the albums that I think that are not as good are most of the time by one band or something that released one album, one of those bands, but those are not one of my favorites. I'm going to pick ones that actually influenced me as a writer, song music, as a musician, as what got me into that. Some of those still rank up as one of my favorite bands. I want to at least pick, one of my least favorite albums by one of those bands. And that's what I did. So, I think I went on too long, so this is Heavy Thrash Head saying I am out.